Brenton Perring, welcome to the Colour Forum. I'm really grateful to have you here with us today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and this incredible association you're a part of?
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's always fantastic to engage with the GMG. I've worked with you in one life or another for many years. So the Independent Print Industries Association, abbreviated to I.P.I.A, we are a national trade association that looks after hundreds of members across the country. And effectively, we do four key things for our members. We act as a cooperative in which we can help significantly reduce their overheads. Two, we are a marketing arm for our members because we have many different publishing channels, not just within the print industry, but out beyond the bounds of the industry to our biggest breadbasket sectors, such as marketing. So we help advocate and get their news out there and educate the market. We have a whole series of networking events, both live and virtual, to connect our supply chain. And the last most important thing that we do is we advocate extremely proactively with government and most notably the Department for Business and Trade to ensure that our industry in its entirety has its rightful place at the table as one of the UK's largest and pretty much only existing foundational manufacturing sector. So that's us in a nutshell.
Wow. Okay. And your role within that nutshell?
So I am the general manager, and the I.P.I.A is an incorporated not-for-profit. So there is no board of directors. We are owned by our members, and our members elect our council and our administrative body. And the I.P.I.A employ me and my colleagues, sort of like industry civil servants, to run the association on behalf of the members.
And do you have a massive knowledge of print?
Unfortunately. So my first interaction with the print industry was actually back at university. So I went to the University of Edinburgh, and I was massively interested in photography, photojournalism, journalism, publishing. Joined the school at the university newspaper, The Student. And one of my jobs was to effectively transport the data file down to the local print business printer who actually printed off The Student for us. And obviously in those days, in the initial days, we're literally putting them onto floppy disks. Some of our younger listeners will not know what those are. Imagine little cassettes where you had to put any sort of big file on hundreds of these things and put it in a little container. And then you would literally carry this down to the printer. Walked into a print business for the first time and was just blown away by the understanding of how something we'd spent hours and hours and hours of creativity and hard work creating, used a digital device, a computer, to turn it into reality, and then take it off that digital device, put it through a physical system to then have a physical iteration at the end. Because I'm a massive geek, that was amazing to me. Then sort of moved into journalism and publishing, so was print industry adjacent. And then just at the end of 2009, I became the editor of Print Monthly and Signlink magazines. And I stayed there until 2019 before joining the I.P.I.A.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's a journey and a half. So what does a kind of day look like for you?
So it can be incredibly varied. I can be doing everything from in the morning helping a member in need source £20 million worth of specialized cybersecurity insurance, all the way through to another member who might have a 200-year-old vintage printing press that they've handed down through 4 generations of their family owned business, and they don't want to see it end up on the scrap pile and finding a home for it in a print museum.
Okay.
And
that's obviously happened. That's obviously something that's actually happened.
That has actually happened. Yeah. But in both cases.
Okay.
Speaking to government, organizing our live events, doing all the marketing for the association. Just pretty much everything. It's an incredibly unusual and varied job.
And your members are all businesses, or do you have individual members as well?
So we have sort of 3 segments of membership. One are manufacturers, which are all print businesses. So anyone who effectively takes a substrate, a media, and applies ink of any format to that media and then creates a product out the other end. So in many cases, for example, a packaging firm wouldn't see itself as a printer. A sign maker who derives 80% of its revenue from large format print sees themselves as a sign maker, not a printer. Commercial printers would see themselves as printers, but that's why we have manufacturers, because that is effectively what they're doing, is they're manufacturing print of one form or another. Then we have our print management members. So those are effectively marketing agencies that specialize heavily in the print industry. Quite a few of them at one time would only have bought, sold, procured, specified, designed print. But the vast majority now, as far as their customers are concerned, are a marketing agency that just happens to specialize in our sector. And then our associates, who are the entire supply chain to the print industry. So everything from workwear to ink to the largest presses in the world, and GMG Color on the software side as well, who is a member of the association.
So I know you went to the event Print Without Limits that we co-hosted with Roland and Durst. So that was a selection of your members all together in one place. How did you enjoy it? Was it, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I think it was really fascinating. So speaking to Paul Williams from GMG and Paul Bromley from Durst, because one of the biggest issues that our sector has faced for a long time is, you'll have a major technology manufacturer such as Durst or such as Roland, and they have this incredible software or RIP technology that comes with the presses, but often, until pretty recently, it was completely proprietary to that press technology. You couldn't necessarily use it with another piece of technology. Maybe you could retrofit it or have an intermediary system or whatever. But what was really encouraging to see with the Open Software Initiative is that it is a concerted effort. And I'm really glad to see that GMG Color is part of that, in breaking down these silos and barriers. Because effectively, if the print business can be more efficient, if it can have less touch points in the journey of a job from initial design and specification to shipping, if the consistency, the quality of that job can remain more consistent, higher quality, and reduce the time it takes to produce it, that's good for the printer. That's fantastic for the industry long term. So, and if we have these barriers continue to break down, where technology manufacturers, yes, they have to compete on Monday. The reality is Durst and Roland have a competitive offering in a hardware sense. But if they can collaborate on all other aspects of the supply chain, it will only help the industry as a whole. So I think it's a fantastic thing. I think it's very credible. And as I was saying to both Pauls yesterday, color control, consistency is absolutely paramount now. Because if you are a large brand, 10 years ago, let's look at someone like, I don't know, something really straightforward, Costa Coffee. 10 years ago, they weren't particularly worried if, the brochure that they had and the POS poster they had and the signage outside the business and all the other ephemera forms of print, the uniforms that their staff were wearing, give or take 10%, were vaguely the right shade, was fine. But brand marketing has become so fiercely competitive now that things like having, that being a 1% difference is now considered only vaguely acceptable. They want it all to be absolutely spot on. And if you are the print business trying to supply Costa with all of that ephemera of different outputs, the ability for you to color match it is extremely difficult. And systems like GMG Color, and also now these new initiatives like the Open Software Initiative, that make it easier for printers to simply say, yes, Costa, no problem. And it's not a major issue for us. We can hit your brand spot color, no problem. And we can output it across these 4 different devices and it'll all be perfect, is a massive competitive advantage. So yeah, it's great.
It's wonderful that these things are actually coming into force, and there is conversation around there being a decline in the print industry. But maybe technology and that happening has actually pushed people to realize that there is a bigger picture out there and things need to be thought about. I mean, how do you see the industry evolving at the moment? I mean, what's your thoughts as an association surrounded by print? Do you see a big shift?
Yeah, so I think it's important. Most people from outside the print industry, when they think about the words print, there's really only two or three things that come into their heads. And it's, newspapers, brochures, magazines. That's the first things that pop into their heads. Those are areas that have changed massively over the last 20 years. So there is no doubt that, those type of applications have just the ability to consume news digitally is just easier. That's it. It's a better metric, a better platform for consuming something like that. But in all of those sectors, they sort of found their bottom level roughly about 5 years ago. And what we've seen consistently in many other areas, so for example, in the large format print space, which is, again, maybe for uninitiated listeners, imagine, I always use this example, imagine a music festival. You have all of the banners, you have the feather flags, you have all of the festival stands, you've got all of the sort of bracelets. Print, if you stand in a festival within a 5 meter space around you, there will be 20 different applications of print. So if you look at that space and the retail space, print has only continued to grow and grow and grow by double-digit numbers for the last 10 years. And that is because as we've just been talking about, a lot of these applications, so for example, having your entire retail fleet, logistics fleet wrapped and fully branded would have been an extremely expensive and difficult process 20 years ago. Today, it's an extremely fast and very cheap process to do. So these increases in technology has liberated the market, and it's only continued to expand and grow. We also have areas, for example, like direct mail, which is continued to see 4 to 5% growth year on year for the last 4 years. And a lot of that is being stimulated by digital oversaturation. So you have
Okay.
all of this ephemera of different social media outputs. You've got 24-hour news cycles, etc. And what that's done is, whilst those platforms in and of themselves are fantastic at providing you with immediate data, they're extremely cheap, is that if you're a brand that actually wants to reach you as the end consumer, the competition for that consumer's attention is massively fragmented. And the ability to actually connect with them and hold their attention for more than 3 seconds is extremely difficult and can be extremely expensive.
It's the old swipe, 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 isn't it? Yeah.
So if you are then taking the same digital data set that was powering, so you've got all that information and knowledge about your customers,
Mhm.
and you're utilizing that previously just on digital only channels. Now, one of the things that I really like to get out there is to completely dispel this idea that print is some offline marketing channel. It's not. Print is digital. You take a digital data file that's got all of the personalized information about your customers. You've planned out a segmented campaign about how you're going to target those customers, and you're then outputting it to different channels. Now, in every single one of those cases, it ends up on a physical medium. So even if it's a digital file, it ends up,
Yeah.
you have to consume it through a physical medium, which is your phone.
Yeah,
Now,
Brendan
in
is
this
holding the
phone,
phone up for those people who are listening whilst
yeah,
this is
sorry.
going on.
Yeah, I forgot this is also audio only. So
Yeah.
I was just holding my phone up there. It's coming out through a physical item, which is your phone. Now, inside that phone are multiple different apps, and the consumer's attention is fragmented. But if you take that same digital data and you personalize it with a beautiful direct mail campaign, which can be customized with their first name, multiple different messages, you can personalize it with their favorite color. You understand their age demographic, their regional demographic, etc. All this sort of stuff. You can then personalize it with specific imagery that will appeal to them as an individual consumer. Now, they're getting it through the letterbox. There's also now a 99.9% open rate because the consumer doesn't know what's inside the letter. So they have to open it. They've now engaged with it. once they've engaged with it, you've personalized it to them. And the average engagement time for direct mail is over a minute. So,
Okay.
so it's this continuous tension between effectiveness and efficiency. Digital only is extremely efficient, but is it effective? Print has become more and more efficient now over time, and it's extremely effective. Because once that print is in the consumer's hands, they've spent over a minute with it, it's personalized to them. And most importantly now, it will trigger back to a digital journey. So, I get, I get all sorts, I'm into hiking and outdoor life. So I get all sorts of catalogs through the door. But very often those direct mail pieces will have money off vouchers.
Yeah. So I
They will
was going
have,
to say, yeah,
they'll have
those
digital
are the
triggers. It will
hooks.
say,
Yeah.
2-week only offer, get 50% off on this tent or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're then having to scan a QR code or use a code, go to their website. So the physical print is now acting as a push trigger back to the digital platform.
Yeah.
And then once that consumer is then interacting on that digital platform, it's then enriching the original data set. So that is where print is growing. And we're seeing multiple members of ours continue to grow successively year on year, by being able to consult with their customers and not just see themselves as a factory. So they're not waiting for business or trying to win business that already exists. They're sitting down with their customers and saying, right, what do you want to achieve? And how can we utilize the skill set and technology we have to achieve it? And by the way, print has some weaknesses, but it's got some incredible strengths. And this is how you can leverage them. So yeah, that's my 5-minute soapbox.
Yeah, no, it was really interesting. No, because I was thinking the mail that comes through. I mean, we've got a house full of grown-up children, from late teens to early 20s. But if they get mail, if they get post, like, oh, is that for me? Is that for me? Because post stopped. There was like nothing came through the door. But now, if there's a catalogue, and you even going into a supermarket, you get the free one if you've got the right membership code and stuff. Every 2 months you get your Waitrose or your John Lewis magazine, and the recipes come home, and the children are interested. I mean, again, the grown-up children are interested in that, but I know it happens in the younger generation where you would get kind of early learning center type stuff would come through the door, and the kids are hooked into things. And then you're right, it is a journey from the paper onto the internet, and unfortunately then into your parents' credit card. But I mean, that's the way it goes. But then stuff gets sent out, packaging is then required, and it's the whole circle. So everything is kind of incorporated. I suppose we take a lot of it for granted, but I mean, IPIA keeping this industry connected very much. And do you find that as a task, or is it something that happens quite naturally?
It is a continuous effort. Uh, you know, the IPA has changed how it is connected to our industry over the last 10 years. It's not really a secret. The IPA used to be known as the I.P.I.A, because it effectively was very good at putting on drinking sessions, but that was a way of connecting people back in the day. Today, we have multiple different avenues, channels, physical events, virtual events, our magazine, our newsletter, all of our relationships with multiple other industry associations. And we're effectively all pulling in the same direction. Number one is to make sure that our industry is as integrated as possible, that all of the major stakeholders, whether they're technology developers or printers, are aware of each other to help effectively engender collaboration wherever possible. And that is because if you look at some of the most successful manufacturing industries that have continued to exist in the UK, things like car manufacturing, the car manufacturing industry collaborates on more than 70% of its supply chain. They're all competing with each other on Monday for car sales, or for their particular brand. But they realized 20 years ago that they needed to collaborate on all sorts of areas in order to make sure that they were making the market as efficient as possible for all of them. And then the 30% was differentiating themselves. And the print industry has a long way to go to get there, but it is something that we're actively working on to try and make sure that we are breaking down those barriers. We are bringing our supply chain together. But the most important thing, I think, really is that our industry doesn't just talk to itself. It has to make its case outside of its own bubble to big breadbasket sectors for us, like marketing and communications. Because I think what you said earlier in the podcast is we did a massive national research project, which I would urge anyone listening to this to go and check out, which is called A New Narrative for Print. We engaged a large London agency called Medano that over the course of a year's worth of data did a digital listening exercise so that we could fundamentally understand what is the true perception of the UK print industry across things like sustainability, trust, effectiveness, etc. And one of the incredible pieces of research finding that we got was that, for example, 99.1% of consumers trust print innately. And that was such a decent figure that we didn't believe it to start with. So we asked them to really dive into that specific figure and give us much more in-depth research to understand why is that so high, the trust in print. And just to give you an example, one of the psychological reasons for that is that no matter where you are in the UK, you will have spent almost all your entire formative years being exposed to print, whether it is in school from your reading books, whether it is with your parents being read to, and all of your early interactions and the way that we learn are through print. So we're literally brainwashed and programmed and conditioned to trust what is in print because
but that's only our age group, surely. I mean, or is it not?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I can give a personal example. Our Cabot Learning Federation in Bristol, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago now, did this whole push towards let's get all the kids tablets, let's stop printed learning, book learning, etc. Let's make it all digital. And there was a significant negative effect on learning outcomes.
Was this within your school?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was entirely reversed. And it is now full end-to-end book learning, just like it was for me or you.
Okay.
Obviously, they have digital tools. They've got all of the e-boards and online resources, but print and physical learning through books is at the absolute core again. I can give you another example. I went up and did a video case study for one of our members, Rico, at the Birmingham Metropolitan College.
Okay.
They similarly went to a digital-only learning environment 4 or 5 years ago. There was a huge decrease in learning outcomes for its students. And again, they completely reversed course, expanded their internal print department. And again, everything now is through physical learning through print. So I think it's a massive opportunity for our sector to understand that consumers trust print innately. The issue is that many, many major marketing companies, agencies, individual marketers have grown up, especially if they are probably under 40, their entire tuition has been that digital only is the way to go, that print is an offline analog medium, that it isn't effective. So we know that it is from all of our own research, from our own personal understanding at the I.P.I.A. We can see how effective it is. We can see all these individual major wins. And effectively, a new narrative for print now is leveraging all that research and those facts and being able to help reach out to the marketing industry to educate them about the true nature and effectiveness of print.
Wow. Okay. What an interesting study. And it took a year, it took 12 months to pull that in. And funded by who? Funded by the association, or was that government funded, or?
So it actually took 4 years for us to get the funding together to do it. And it was through a group of members of the I.P.I.A who sponsored the association.
Okay.
That came together to co-fund the project with us. And it was for no other real reason that they saw the long-term picture is that, and it's what's at the core of the I.P.I.A is we have to continuously reinvest in our industry. We have to advocate and fight for our industry to just have it its rightful place. I mean, we're not saying anything that's not true. We're not trying to make up strengths that print doesn't have. It's just that in that initial huge digital wave, there are huge amounts of myths that were created about our sector I mean, another one I can give you, it didn't surprise us, but one of the biggest negativities around our sector was around sustainability.
That's my next question. Yeah, I was literally about to say, go on.
So we found that we had a, we only, if, 99.1% trust in print, but
Yeah.
there was only a 17% favorable perception of print and its sustainability. Now, we know the reality is, and there's many great organizations who've been working out there, for example, like Two Sides, to combat these myths that have been generated for many years. But effectively, digital products, whether it was email or YouTube, any of these type of digital products, when they first came out, they had to fight for their place in the ecosystem. They had to convince people why they should be used. So,
Mhm.
in the DNA of the digital industry and its marketing channels is to fight for themselves and continuously explain why it's of value. Now, print has been around for hundreds of years, and it was so dominant. It was like turning the lights on and electricity coming on, or turning a tap and water coming out. It was just taken for granted. So, in our own industry's DNA, there is no need to market ourselves or fight for ourselves. And it's really only in the last 15 or 20 years that we've had to start developing these skills. So the fact is that the print industry is singularly responsible for growing tree volumes worldwide more than any other sector. And that is because you wouldn't be a very good tree farmer if you didn't plant double the number of trees than you cut down. The life cycle of, even the misconception that trees are actually planted to create paper is completely untrue. All of the forests that are sustainably managed in Northern Europe, in the UK, in Canada, in North America are grown for construction. And the pulp that is used for print is actually a byproduct of the construction industry.
Oh my
So,
goodness. Okay.
so we're actually utilizing this byproduct of another industry, and that's why the trees are planted and sustainably managed. There is then, in terms of the most modern paper manufacturing mills, from the point in which those shavings, that part of the tree leaves the forest until it gets to actually being a piece of paper, there is now something like only a 1% energy loss. So all of the biomass that is created from those trees is used in sustainable manufacturing. So the water that is used in paper manufacturing plants actually goes back into the river ecosystems cleaner than it came out.
Is this
So
like managed by a governing body? I mean, who oversees all of this to make sure that that mulch is and the pulp comes to the right place? And I mean, how does that? How is it managed?
Our industry is governed and watched more closely almost than any other. And that's just from whether it's government legislation. We have things like the European Union Directory on Forestry, the UDR, which is another major piece of EU and UK legislation that's come out to govern the sustainable management of forests. We also, because the digital industry needed effectively someone to fight against when they first started, everyone will have seen the emails about, save a tree, don't print off this email. It's complete nonsense. In fact, the opposite is true. By not printing off the email, you are not saving a tree, you're endangering a tree. Because if the paper and print industry and tree planting industries are hurt, they plant less trees, not more trees.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that
so,
makes
and,
sense.
and in a lot of people's minds, they, even friends I have, they think that somehow a book is responsible for deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. Um, and again, the opposite is true because, I'm not going to say it's out of some sort of idealistic desire to protect the planet. But again, if you are planting trees and selling the products of that tree, you don't want someone undercutting you in Brazil who's just felling virgin rainforest.
Mm.
So some of the biggest investors in global sustainability initiatives are the pulp, tree, and paper companies because they want to make sure that competitors aren't undercutting them, in the southern hemisphere, for example. So yeah, but all of it ties back into this sort of key fact is that the print and paper industries have this incredible story to tell. We are technologically advanced. Our products work extremely well, but biggest job that we have to do is to tell that story effectively. one of the biggest challenges we have, even say at a political level, is we had a colleague who works in the civil service in Scotland to look after its forestry. And they had a politician come up to give them a tour and, help them understand the whole way the system works. And driving through Scotland, they obviously saw all of these areas of cut down trees. And their immediate response to seeing these cut down trees was saying, "Oh my gosh, deforestation is so bad and this must be terrible. How can this be happening in the modern day in the UK?" And they had to explain to the politician, no, 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 no. This is farmed forestry. So imagine a field of corn. Yeah. So you plant the field of corn, it grows up, you then cut it, you then feed someone with it, and then you regrow another field of corn. And in fact, you want to plant, if you're a good farmer, you want to plant another 2 or 3 fields of corn. So you're always continuously expanding the crop, not decreasing it, if you are making money out of it. And it's exactly the same thing for our sector, where they were saying, "No, just wait." And as they came round the corner of a hill, they suddenly saw, as far as the eye could see, millions and millions of hectares of small saplings. And then beyond that, medium sized, and beyond that, full size mature trees. And explained to them it's only because of the forestry industry that we're able to maintain such a large and diverse and growing forestry in the UK. So it's just understanding those things. But the issue is that the lack of knowledge and full understanding of that type of thing is, we've not done a good enough job as our industry, and it's something that we are fighting hard with other partners like Two Sides to try and correct.
That was brilliant. Really nicely explained. Thank you. Absolutely fascinating. And I mean, the future for all of this, what are the biggest opportunities that you think that are going to come from? It's very interesting. You say kind of the last 4 years, direct mail has really come on track. I'm thinking logistically, that's to the back end of COVID. And did that have anything to do with it? And then my other question, kind of moving forward, the opportunities that the print industry is going to have coming its way with the dawn of AI and stuff now.
Yeah. So in terms of opportunities for the future, is it all comes back to this idea about trust. So we live in a world now where, even in the UK, 80% of adults would have got their news from 2 sources 30 years ago. Those sources were the radio and television, and 3 sources, also newspaper media. The number of channels were extremely consolidated. Now there is literally thousands. And knowing, especially for my kids' generation, knowing what to believe, knowing which sources of media you can trust is a major problem. So one of the key findings we found, again, as to why that 99.1% figure is so high for trust in print, is because there's a generalized conception or perception in the consumer base that because it takes so much more effort to design, produce, send, and for them to receive it, it is more highly valued. They're more trusting of the fact that someone is willing to go to that effort to literally, put something down in ink and paper, is less likely to be misleading them. Now, we all know that that's obviously possible. There's not some sort of magic protection over print that means you can't mislead people using print as a medium, but the perception is there.
Yeah, I do tend to agree with what you've just said. I think in my own gut instinct, I feel the same.
Yeah. And again, it's certainly true of my kids' generation. They're total digital natives, but for them, print is a joyous moment. It's a trusted moment. So for the future, print service providers, whether it is them doing large format work to create national branding for a large retail chain, all the way through to a boutique fashion agency that is producing really high-end catalogs that it's sending out to its customers in order for them to order from them, the opportunity for print in the future is to leverage those strengths of print, its physicality, its tactility, its trustedness, and most importantly, its moment of calm and pause, because it is an antidote, that physical receipt of something in print. The fact that you're spending just 60 seconds reading through something that's been really well thought out and presented to you versus every 3 seconds scroll on your phone. And this is no criticism of the digital industry. It has its place, and print and digital work extremely well together. But that is the future. AI, a massive help for the print industry. It's going to change it massively.
Give us some pointers in kind of why, how, and where.
So I'll give one that's sort of super geeky and techy, and then one that's more creative. So,
Okay.
so if you can imagine within a big manufacturing business that's say got multiple different presses, 40 staff, multiple different clients coming in. I was in a member's business just 2 months ago where effectively they had every single member of staff was wearing a little bracelet. And as they were walking around the factory, in order to be able to utilize a machine, they need to touch that bracelet to the machine. That is then ensuring that they can only load the specific job that they're working on the machine. It has all the parameters in it. So effectively, it's reducing the ability for them to make human error. All of the vast amount of data, every single machine has a sensor on it, and all of that data is being fed into a central hub. So now, and this is where AI comes in, is the ability for deep learning, machine learning algorithms. The MD can now sit there and using an AI agent that is able to interact with that data and interrogate another agent that is looking into it, is for them to be able to say, for example, which is my most productive team? And it will be able to just answer them as a colleague.
Yeah.
And then give them the backup for it. Which is my most profitable product? Which is my least profitable product? And instead of DMD having to pour through reams of data and understanding it and putting pieces together, they can literally now just use an AI agent to speak to their almost live factory. It's sort of become a living being almost, where they can just interact with it and talk to it, which is a bit scary, but
I was
also
going to say
incredible.
it's quite terrifying, really.
Yeah. So that's the techie bit where it will only help the overall productivity of our sector. It obviously has to be implemented in a responsible way, because could have potential massive impact on jobs. In fact, it already is. We're seeing genuinely millions of redundancies around the world as a result of the AI boom, specifically in the tech sector. But again, where a creative or a designer in a business is now able to use, for example, AI design tools, not as a replacement for them, but a productivity enhancer for them, it's then ultimately just down to the individual business owners as to whether they use it as a replacement for human beings, which I believe genuinely long-term is a mistake, or as a way to augment the strengths of human beings and help them be more productive and more effective at their jobs.
I think AI definitely still needs the human touch. Otherwise, I mean, where on earth are we going? I mean, I couldn't believe that there was robots running the marathon at the weekend, and then BBC was kind of presenting us with this. But there's no, per- I can't feel the personal achievement in that for something like running a marathon, because you have to train to do that. I can appreciate you take the AI into the tech side of it, and all of a sudden it can pull this data that you're explaining, but actually to overachieve something that a human is designed to do, I find quite terrifying. I have to be honest. So yeah, let's hope let's hope print keeps out with that one.
So yeah, I think print is, as I think I mentioned much earlier, print is one of the last foundational manufacturing sectors in the UK left. And when we talk about foundational sectors, it is those economic sectors that have literally built the UK economy from scratch. So if you imagine areas like, shipbuilding, steel, coal mining, etc., the vast majority of those sectors are now either very, very small, textile, manufacturer, very small. One of the last ones we have left is print. And it is not in danger. It is growing, it is evolving, it is adapting, it's changing. And what I want to ask anyone who's listening to this to do is, wherever you are, whether you're sitting at work, in the car, at home, just look around you and you will see multiple different areas of things which is literally just taken ink and applied it to something physical. That's print. It is all around us. It is ephemeral. And back to our host for this podcast with GMG color, it all definitely needs to be the right color as well.
It certainly does. Brendan, thank you so much for sharing your insights.
An absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to The Colour Forum, the podcast from GMG Colour, where we bring together the people, innovations, and ideas that shape the world of colour and print. Don't forget to follow and share with others across the industry. You can contact us to book a demo via sales.uk@gmgcolour.com.